Okay, so let's say we've completed a complete claim, we've put in a tax return, and we filed it with the Canada Revenue Agency. What can we expect to happen? Well, before we start, some of the things that we want to be aware of is the CRA has certain services for first-time claimants, where they'll invite you to a seminar and explain to you what's required in the process. There's also private practitioners who run seminars or courses such as this to illustrate to claimants what's required. Once you've filed at least one successful claim, you will have both a Canada Revenue Agency technology officer assigned to your file, a research and technology reviewer they would call it, and a financial reviewer. So you'll have a technology and a financial person, both assigned as representatives or executives on your account. What you can do in the event that you have a very large project, so not every single SR&ED project, but a particularly large project that management wants some assurance that they're going to get SR&ED credits on before they invest in the process, is you can ask for what they call a PCPR, or pre-claim process review. And what that means is before you invest the money in a potentially eligible SR&ED project, you can ask your reviewer, technology reviewer, to come out, visit your site, explain to him or her what you intend to do, and get a pre-approval or preliminary judgment, let's call it, on whether that work would qualify. And typically, as long as you take this agreement and follow the work in question, my experience has been that the experience will be favorable. Okay. Now, let's assume, going back then, that we have filed a complete claim. How long should we wait until we hear an assessment or get a notice of assessment? And the answer to that depends on how we filed the claim in relation to the overall tax return. If we're a refundable client, so a qualified Canadian-controlled private corporation, and we filed the SR&ED claim with the tax return, that means we filed the tax return including all the related forms for the SR&ED credit. The CRA's stated response time or assessment time is 120 days, or roughly 4 months. And in my experience, if you e-file these returns, it can be as fast as 2 to 3 days, or 7 days on average. So again, a very quick turnaround time. If instead you file the corporate tax return, say within the 6-month deadline or any deadline, normally a corporate tax return is due 6 months after the corporation's year end. In our example, let's take a December 31, 2010 taxation year, and we file by June 30th, 2011 without SR&ED. The Income Tax Act gives us the right within 18 months from the year end to amend the original claim to include the SR&ED credit. So let's say the accountants panic, they want to get the return filed on time within the 6-month deadline. In case we owe any taxes, we don't want interest or additional penalties accruing. So they file without the SR&ED. Let's say a month later, when the engineering team has the time to pull all the information together, we file an amendment to that 2010 tax return to in fact include a claim for SR&ED. Now what we file is a TPR, or taxpayer requested adjustment, and in substance, this is going to create a lot of problems in our experience for the taxpayer. Reason one is the CRA puts this as a lower priority. They feel that you should have had a system in place to track the SR&ED at the time it was going on, i.e. during the year real time, not try to write the descriptions a year or two after the fact. And if in fact you couldn't get it done by the time you filed the tax return, that's a very strong indication that there was no recording system in place. The result is they have double the stated turnaround time, 8 months or 240 days rather than 4 months. And the stated performance consistency is that TPR claims are roughly 68% successful, whereas claims filed on time are roughly 88% successful. So just on the basis of that, you're typically going to lose at least 20% off the top by filing the same claim using an amendment process than a complete tax return process. And it's always best, if possible, perhaps to delay the filing of the complete tax return, particularly where there will be no taxes payable, to include the claim for SR&ED credits, rather than to file an incomplete tax return, i.e. not including the SR&ED, and to subsequently amend it when it's relatively certain that such a claim will be filed. Okay? So that covers the first of the 2 types of filings for a qualified Canadian-controlled private corporation or refundable claim. For public companies or foreign-controlled companies, the non-refundable claimants, the typical response time from the CRA is 365 days. Now, in reality, once those clients file the claim, they typically get the assessment within 30 days, in my experience. And the CRA has the right to come and review those claims up to 365 days. If the CRA does not exercise that right within the 365-day period, the CRA actually loses the right to come and review that claim unless the client wants to let them do so. So again, the treatment of review process for non-refundable claims is distinctly different from refundable claims.